Hello, this is Alan Wheeler on my YouTube channel where I talk about spirituality and tarot. And today is I'm continuing the playlist or series on Christian tarot. And we'll talk about card 3 of the major arcana, the Empress. I'm sitting here at my altar here with some incense and candle going here. But today in the mail came this cauldron, and um, my wife, who is a very serious practicing Christian, um, asked me about that, was quite shocked at this, and I didn't have time yet to explain its use for ritual or even the background that the cauldron may be in older legends um, one of the sources of the Grail legends. And certainly it also can symbolize communion, transformation, healing, and similar ideas of maybe divine intervention, grace um, for people, and so on. I believe the death card in the Druidcraft Tarot shows a cauldron for transformation in it. And as a balance, I may start soon a another ongoing series on pagan tarot, just to have the balancing approach. But for now, I will give my disclaimer that, as witnessed by my wife's shock at the purchase of the cauldron, um, I want to acknowledge sometimes there's bad blood between the Christian and pagan community, and acknowledge that I understand people have been hurt, and that there's hard feelings sometimes. Um, my purpose is to help those that may be transitioning in the way I did, as tarot was my first step um, into experimenting with alternate beliefs and expanding spiritually. It could also help readers who um, haven't looked into the Christian symbolism in the tarot, and help them do readings for those from that kind of background or orientation. And also, it's just helpful for me as a kind of shadow work as I fight against having animosity or hard feelings myself. I really don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater as far as the good principles and wealth of spirituality um, in a mainstream religion. And um, even though I may not like the toxic, what I consider toxic elements of being too rigid, uh, forcing others to think the way you do, and things like that. So let's get into the Empress card. And first, we'll look at Meditations on the Tarot. And this is a journey into Christian Hermeticism. It was my first um, step. I was excited to find some material that um, seemed to be saying that the tarot did not go against all that Christianity stands for. That it might not be the taboo that I thought it was. And every chapter in the book begins with a picture from the Marseille tarot, and usually a Bible verse or a quote from a philosopher or scholar. This one happens to be from the Christmas story in Luke. Behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. And these are Mary's words to the angel, Gabriel, who has just told her she will conceive and give birth to Messiah. So I believe the allusion there is that the energy of the Empress could include Mary. In fact, as I began rereading the chapter, in fact, uh, the anonymous author does see the figure as typified by Mary and incarnation, the Word made flesh, and creation as trees and animals and the seas and lands come into being. He also sees the card as representing the physical people of God. And a step further, he says it represents sacred magic. And as he discusses what he means by sacred magic, he looks at three key symbols on the card: the crown, the shield, and the scepter that the Empress carries. Others have noted the throne back here almost looks like wings on the Empress there. And so the author says that the crown shows the source of magic, should be sacred as above, so below. The shield with the eagle, he says, shows the living forces of nature as the what of magic. And the scepter, he says, shows the how, the power. And he calls it the science of love. And he goes on to say that rituals and sacraments that in which basically people participate in the spiritual, or participate in a myth in some cases, or participate in the divine through the physical rituals, the sacraments. And he goes on to talk about the tree of life as a partaking. So there's generation, creation, manifestation that's pictured in this card. The he says a new invention, a work of art, the birth of a child, and these kind of things could encompass that energy. Now, Waite, in the pictorial key to the tarot, of course, the pictures here are from the illustrations of Pamela Coleman Smith. There's a waterfall and abundant growth around the figure, and the dress is covered in pomegranates. And Waite writes that this Empress, she is the inferior Garden of Eden, the earthly paradise. So he tries to separate her more from her sister or counterpart, the High Priestess, than some writers do. And He writes, she is the fruitful mother of thousands, and she is the woman clothed with the sun, which was also similar to the high priestess, as the Gloria Mundi, the glory on earth, and the veil of the Sanctum Sanctorum, which is the Holy of Holies, that separating veil. And I would just note that her dress has the same symbols as that veil on the High Priestess card. So it may be a fine point, but Waite is saying that this Empress, is the door or gate to this life and to the garden of Venus. Of course, the symbol of Venus is here. The love and desires of this life. He says that the way out, this is going the other way, this is the role that belongs to the high priestess. And so he makes a difference there. And sometimes he can make such a strong point that some people don't like his tone there, but point well taken that they could be two aspects of the divine feminine here. On the website that I created, and which I'll link below, again, I made it several years ago, so it's a little bit heavy-handed, but on that website, I draw from these ideas that the Empress could be considered the bride of Christ, which is the church. Waite would say it's the more physical. I guess the other anonymous author agrees, the physical, the body here on earth, rather than the more esoteric. And the maybe the wife of God in the sense of people, the creation, and the Holy Spirit in some sense involved in that. I write there, I talk about the abundance and the earth, and there's many, of course, psalms and poems talking about that beauty of the earth and the glory of nature. And I link the song, I believe I linked Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing there because of that waterfall pictured on the card. So that is card number 3 of the Major Arcana, the Empress, and of course the 4 temporal rulers are the Hierophant yet to come, who's paired with the High Priestess on the spiritual elements, and the Emperor and the Empress paired on the more mundane rule here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you will find connection with people in your life, with community online, and on your spiritual path, whatever that may be. Take care.